Hello, welcome to Alter Heron. My name's Rob Runacres and I'm joined today by my guest Reinier van Noort,
Hello.
the renowned historical fencer and translator and researcher. How are you?
I'm a bit tired, but I think that's logical. It's Sunday afternoon after a big event.
Yep, so we're just talking now at the International Rapier Seminar. This won't go out for a couple of weeks just yet, so it'll be after the event. So really wanted to grab you because you're probably one of the driving forces in historical translation. Let's put that another way, translation of historical fencing texts. Mm-hmm. And it's been marketed, I suppose, by Fallen Rook, who's one of the publishers along with Lulu, as Late Rapier series. So do you want to just talk us through some of the treatises you've worked on, how you got into this?
Yeah, well, you said the Late Rapier series, and that's a series of 3 treatises that I ended up translating, and one of them together with French guy, Philippe.
Anton Coudre?
Yeah, thank you, Anton. And the other one's by myself mainly. The one is Brugjes, which is what got me started. The next one is Lange, which I was interested in because it had a similar date, very similar title as Brugjes, and they both came through the same town.
What dates are these?
So Lange would be 1664, and it was published in Heidelberg. Brugjes is 1671, it was published in Leiden, but he'd been in Heidelberg before that.
Okay.
And the third one, Philibert de La Touche, his work is 1670, and it's so close in date that I was always interested in it. And one thing that makes me translate works is if I'm interested in them and I want to read them, but nobody's done the work, and I end up translating them.
Sure.
And then, stuff happens. So these 3 make up the Late Rapier series. And as I said, Brugjes is what got me started doing my first translation back in 2009, which was rather horrible then. But of course, for the for the one published at Fallen Rook, we cleaned it up quite a lot.
Yeah.
And then after that, I set off looking at other works interesting. And the last work I published at Fallen Rook would be the C13 translation, which is really changing my fencing even right now.
Okay, so you've got these 3 main texts which are very close to each other. Are they close stylistically to each other, or are they?
I would say that there's quite a lot of agreement between Lange and Brugjes, both being German, Italian-based, etc. La Touche is completely different.
Right. So you're looking really at a close time frame, but that's beyond that. That's it really. And just you've mentioned one other text. What other translations have you done in addition? In brief.
I don't keep a list. Well, I keep a list on my website on www.brugjes.com.
Okay.
But I don't keep a list in my head so much. But for example, I've done Schmidt recently, which is quite an interesting book on 1713, doing not just fencing in different ways, but also some grappling and some the vaulting on the table and the horse. And Schmidt, I think one of the things that were interesting there is that he was said to have been a student of Brugjes, which is probably not correct, but the first part of his treatise does follow quite a lot. Another one I did, I'm very happy with, is Kuppe, 1619 German rapier. And Kuppe is very interesting. He is not so much a fencing master, he was a master in medicine, I think.
Okay.
But he wrote a very interesting book giving his own view on fencing and illustrating how fencing changed from the German Meyer, from the Lichtenauer-based system that he's ridiculing a bit into the Fabrice-based system that we see from the 17th century onwards. And he's documenting that change in an interesting way, and also he's looking at the basics, the principles, combining them in a more interesting way. So his work is very interesting for an experienced fencer, especially to see a different way of thinking about these things.
Now, are you trying to follow, I mean, what you seem to be doing is opening up a lot of the non-Italian sources to a wider audience. Is that particular avenue that you're following? Is it just happens that you see a treatise, think that's kind of interesting, I'm going to grab that one and do that? Or do you have a theme?
No, it's largely that, like, this is an interesting work, I want to know more, nobody's done the work, so I'll do it. And also, the stupid thing is when I make a translation, I don't actually read the content as such. I read a different part of my brain or whatever. So then once I've made a translation, I can finally sit down and read the book for myself.
I mean, that's actually pretty much how I do it, is you sort of go on an automatic and then you have to refine it, don't you? Because you're rereading it with your fencing knowledge as well, and that's when some of the tuning comes in, I guess.
Yes, and also the tuning and that's one of the big steps I had to learn in making translations, the tuning from a word-by-word translation to something that's sort of new sentences, but still very close to something that's actually saying in an understandable English way what was first written in understandable German, Dutch, whatever way. And I think that last step is the most difficult.
Yes, I'd agree. Because actually, studying because we've got a translation coming out, and I've just been looking at. We've been discussing making that jump from a sort of oldie worldy type language, which is probably not what was intended anyway, to something that is modern English. And I know that some translators don't like to do that. They want to have this sort of slightly archaic thing, and I find that actually can cloud the message of the treatise. Is that something you follow?
Yeah, I mean, I've evolved. My stance has evolved a bit in this, but yeah, right now I think it's more important to, as accurately as possible, purvey the message that the author wanted to have. And if there's doubt, if you feel that you're interpreting too much, then you just add a footnote.
Footnotes. We all love footnotes, don't we?
Some people do.
Yeah. Okay. And are you working on anything specific at the moment, or got anything in the pipeline?
Well, I just published a book that I translated for my good friend Jan Schever in Dresden, because he's helped me with so many of these things. I told him, if there's some stuff you want me to help you with, I'll do that. So we just published a translation of Beaupré together, which is very interesting. The original work was published in Ingolstadt in Germany in both German and French.
What sort of dates?
1721.
Okay.
So I made a translation for him. In the end, I decided to do that based on the French text, because Beaupré was a French master, so I assumed that was most close to what he wanted to say. And then we made a comparison also with the German text to make sure we noted any important differences between the two.
And so where's that available, just in case people
that's published through NZ Mente, my own publishing thing, and that's on Lulu.
Okay, cool.
But again, if you go to brugjes.com
yeah, cool.
or nzmente.com, you'll find the list and everything there.
Okay.
And I've done another treatise for Jan. The translation's been done for a while, but we have some permission error issues, and we're trying to decide, because this one has beautiful color illustrations, and we have permission to use them.
Oh, you have? Oh, marvelous.
Yes.
Okay.
But now we also need to look at a way, because it kind of deserves to be published like your book and the C13 book, as Keith did them, and I don't have the skills for that yet, so we need to find out how to do that as well.
It's a very difficult one, because of course it also pushes the price up, and something that I think some viewers might not understand is we're not necessarily in it for the money. We're never going to make a lot of money through historical translations. But you've got this responsibility of getting things out there in the highest possible quality. But then you start to play with price, and it's very easy for people to say, I know people said, you should bring out, it should be £100 book. Well, that, it's already very expensive, isn't it, to do?
Yeah, you cannot, you'll never get a proper hour salary out of it. If I calculate how much I should charge per hour, I'm going to cry.
This is a labour of love, let's face it.
So try to find a balance where I get some nice money for myself to buy gear, buy books, support HEMA in a way.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, also get these books out affordably, so that as many people as possible buy them.
Okay. Reinier van Noort, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you.